My name is Amb.vd.L and this is my poster presentation about my thesis assignment subject, Santa Claus and the story world around it. I will be talking about how I came to this thesis subject, about how I did my research, and about the process, so what went well and what went wrong, and about the competencies that I developed throughout my thesis assignment. So, how did this all begin? I met Dr. Monique Hover, a couple of years ago during my attractions and theme parks management specialization. She was one of my lecturers during Imagineering, and I kept in contact. I was in contact with her during my placement, which was at the Efteling as well. Last September, so September 2016, we started working together at the Efteling Academy, and we became quite close. She took on a project with a group of researchers from the NHTV, and she asked me if I could assist her and also do my thesis about her part of the project, which was about storytelling, of course. I loved Imagineering already, but I always thought I wasn't creative enough to be an Imagineer. But it was about one of my favorite subjects, which was Santa Claus. So I took on the project also because it was more focused on the research part. To create more depth into the project, so not only looking into the historical part about Santa Claus, I also combined it with the cultural dimensions, so it would be even more international. And I already had experience in the looking into cultural dimensions because I did my international placement at the Efteling, and I did a project about cultural dimensions in there as well. I also helped setting up workshops for the company, which was from Finland, when they visited at the Efteling. So I helped Monique Hover with that as well, and I had to work together with two other thesis students and, of course, the research team from NHTV. Then about how I did my research. I did thorough desk research. I've done interviews, and I looked into essays. My desk research was quite easy. It was looking into the history about Santa Claus. So where did he come from? About the cultural characters. So not only Santa Claus himself, but about Sinterklaas, for example, from the Netherlands, but also Saint Nick, which is quite the same character. The antagonist Krampus, it's like a devilish kind of person, which brings kids to a forest when they've been bad. But also Dead Moroz, which is Father Frost from Russia. So that was really interesting for me as well. And of course, I looked further into the cultural dimensions, which helped me create a model, which I put into my theoretical framework. I've done interviews. I did this at Finland because I visited the company as well. This was only with Erasmus students, so ESN students. There were no families because it wasn't really easy to find international interviewees and to find families and do interviews with families. It was even harder to find them to have all the cultures investigated. So we, as a team, focused on the Erasmus students. Then the essays. The essays were set up by the Erasmus students as well. They had an assignment from their university to write a letter to Santa with their wishes. And this was a fun thing to use. It won't be a major part in my thesis, but it was a fun thing to use and to look into. Then the process. I've done a company visit in Lapland, which was in Finland, of course, which was really good to finally have the company visualized, because I heard stories about from the research team already how it was, and that the storyline was quite basic. But to have it, yeah, looked into myself, it was better. So I could really see where to focus on. Um, Also, working together with the two other thesis students, they were both from different academies. We really learned from each other. They were from hotel management and facility management, so they had different processes. And I took tips from them, and they took tips from me, and we really motivated each other. Also, what went wrong is that what went wrong is that I had to work alone, which was really hard for me because I am used to be a leader um, of a project group. I have done that in the past quite some time, and I had to be a leader of myself now, and I had to motivate myself, and that was quite hard. Also, Finland, the visit to Finland, it was quite early into my thesis period. So I started on the 13th of February, and I went to Finland at the 24th of February already. So I was still working on my research proposal and also on my theoretical framework, but I already had to visit the company and had to do interviews with the students in Finland before even finishing my theoretical framework, which was quite difficult because now I only had a basic form of my theoretical framework, and I already had to come up with questions for the students. So when I came back from Finland, there were already parts of my thesis, but now I had to connect them together and I had to rewrite my theoretical framework. So that wasn't really convenient. I had to be flexible in all cases, but yeah, it wasn't, yeah, as I already mentioned, it wasn't really convenient. And also, I had to keep the other students in mind because the other two thesis students, they were, as I already mentioned, from different academies. So they had different conditions when it came to their thesis assignment. For instance, they already had to hand it in May, and I had to hand it in June. So they were already finished for 1 month before me. And yeah, so that was really hard. And also they had to, when it came to the research, they had to transcribe all of their interviews, where I had to only transcribe 3 of my interviews and summarize the other interviews. So I kind of helped them transcribe the rest of their interviews, which took me more time. And yeah, so that wasn't really convenient as well. Then how I developed my competencies. The 3 competencies that were mentioned were working together, communicating, and professional development. I already mentioned that I worked together. It was really good to learn from the other students and to work in a professional group of researchers, and to work with other team members as well. I'm quite used to working with leisure students and leisure researchers, but now I had to work with hospitality and hotel researchers as well. Communicating. Most of the things that I have done were in English, so my communication towards Finland, to the company, but also to sometimes to my researchers. My thesis is in English, and most of the meetings that we have done were in Dutch, but sometimes we switched to English as well. The communication in general went well. I kept everyone in touch, and I got a compliment about that as well. My professional development, I got a chance to show myself in a professional environment and to show myself to other professionals in this industry, so also the researchers. And I've done quite well because they asked me to co-write an article. One of the parts of this project was to write a professional article, and they asked me to write a part of it, so which was focused on the cultural dimensions, and of course also, which was quite a professional development, was that I gained experience in Imagineering, and I think this is good to help me find a job in the future. So this was my poster presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you at Christmas.